March/January, everybody.
It's Pi Day.
Oh, Pi Day, that's
It's
right,
Pi Day.
3/14. Yeah, I came across a bunch of that.
And
Pi
it's
Day.
also Albert Einstein's, would have been, I think, 139 today.
139?
And
Wow.
Stephen Hawkins died today, which is interesting.
On Pi
Pi
Day. That was appropriate for him.
Yeah.
Very appropriate. So thank you for this day in the news. Thank you, Ann, for this day in the news.
We're not talking to the dead, right?
Maybe Stephen will join us. I hear he's free. Yeah, that's
he's
interesting,
relieved.
Pi Day. Huh?
I bet you he's relieved.
That's a heck of a life he put in here this time. He deserves a break, I think. He really deserves a break, right?
Stretch out a little bit.
Yeah, stretch out a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sure it's good to be out of his body. Wow.
Yeah, stretch out.
Probably
a
already
little
was out of his body, though. Right?
bit. Yeah. Yeah. It was funny, every now and then you do one of those questions, would you rather this or that? Would you rather be in a wheelchair or would you rather be blind? And you just really start to think, not in a creepy way, but you just start to think like how important is it for me to walk and run and do this, and how important is it for me to see? But when you find a real life example of people that achieve past any of those what ifs, it's so amazing to see what we're really capable of when we tap into it. It doesn't take much to give us permission to do very little in this lifetime. So it makes it even more interesting when someone comes up against all the odds and does more than anybody else is doing when they've got everything going apparently lined up the right way. You know, it's fascinating to witness that. It is always fascinating. Okay, so there's a little blue piece of paper in front of you, and everyone should have one. Yes, you have a blue piece of paper? And what I'm going to ask you to do is to write down, and this is going to be the hardest part for you, write down one word on a topic that you would love to hear me speak about. Fold it over, pass it to the front of the room, and I'm going to get to them as often as I can tonight. But there's one caveat. When I open up someone's, and I obviously am not going to be able to open up everyone's tonight, but when I do open one, and that's going to become my topic, I'm going to attune to your guides, the universe, infinite wisdom, whatever it is I tap into. But I'm going to read the word to you first, and I want you to tap in before I do. So we're just going to sit here and think about it for a moment first, because part of us coming together each month is for you to develop your intuition too. It's important that everybody recognize, and you know, sometimes when we have new faces, I have to reiterate the fact that I am not gifted. I am developed. I am not gifted. I developed this skill because I figured out how to do it. Everybody has it. Everybody has intuition. I developed it to a degree, probably more so than many of you in the room. But it doesn't mean that you guys don't have it. You just might not have developed it to the degree that I have. Okay? So we're going to play around with that today. So just write down one word.
One word that what?
One word that you would like to hear me speak about tonight. Okay? Or any night for that matter. Who knows? It may become inspiration for next month's essay. Just one word. All right? And pass them up to the front of the room. When you're done, fold it in half and pass it up to the front of the room.
You actually have to write it down and get your seat.
I only got one over there, so I don't know which of the three of you it came from. So yes, I can intuit them, but I thought it's a little more fair to pick them out. Okay, so there's one thing that I wanted to kick off with tonight, and then I'm going to get to these slips of paper because I want to make sure that I get to those as well. Every week, every couple of weeks, every month, there are clusters of themes that come up through my client base. And when they cluster, I recognize that this is the way the universe filters up a topic to me, that it's very timely and it's meaningful for me to talk about it now, currently. And I love that's been happening for so many years, and I see how relevant those clusters are. So I do like to try to bring those topics into our group, our public groups, so that if it is something that's affecting you, you can have a little bit more insight or information into it. Because not only do I see that things come to me in clusters, but when something's coming to me in clusters, that means that it's kind of growing in its frequency altogether on Earth. It's not just that my clients are experiencing it a little bit more, it's that it's growing in frequency. There's so many energies at play that are affecting what it is that we experience and how we perceive things, that it makes sense that there would be a duplication of specific things that are rising in our energy, our experiences, or in our challenges. And it's interesting because Michelle kind of played into the topic, and she doesn't even know it, but she'll find it curious. She often intuits something, or she puts a question out in her mind before she comes in, and then I answer the question without knowing what it was. And it happens to Michelle all the time. So it is kind of interesting that tonight she's unaware that she's kicking off a topic that I want to talk about. And I'm going to put it in a way that really helps you to know it once and for all and never unknow it again. And that's the important part, is to know it once and for all. I recognize that for all the years I've been doing this work, guides have always used metaphors for me, and they help because what they do is they almost give you a concrete way to store it in your brain, where words, they float. Concepts, they drift away like water in a sieve. But when you have a metaphor and you think about it and you amp that metaphor up every time it comes, you have a situation that brings it forth, it helps you to understand the concepts a little bit better. So this metaphor, I have found it to be the most useful in working with clients. And here's the concept. We are. There's no way you're going to get around it. We are spirit. I use the word soul more frequently, but since we always hear mind, body, spirit, or we hear mind, body, soul, I'll just put them both up there so we're all on the same page about what the words mean. Our eternal self is our soul. Our soul is here to grow and to develop. It's here to have different mechanisms and vehicles for discovery that we don't have in other realms and we don't have available to us in the energy realm. So it helps to get us closer back to the vibration of love by enhancing our growth, okay? So these vehicles are very, very functional and very useful. In the series of essays I've been doing for my monthly newsletter since probably November, I've been focusing on what those vehicles are. What are the specific vehicles for discovery that we have on Earth that we don't have in other planes? And I think I've gone through 3 out of 4 of them so far in the essays. I have 1 more to go. The 1 more is kind of a big topic. I don't know if I'll cover it in 1 month. I probably won't. I'll probably divide it into 2 months again. But if you ever really want to understand the context of being human, what it means to be a soul in physical form, if you ever really want to understand it, just sit and read all of those essays in succession from November through probably May, okay? Because it's almost like it's your how-to manual. It's like, all right, I'm going to be grabbing a body. Let me just read through what I can expect. And if you read all of those essays together, you get a very good idea of what you expected to use as the vehicles for discovery so your soul can grow and you can get closer to the vibration of love. So the soul knows what it's doing. Your body is 100% born of the earth. It's a banana peel, but it's a very important banana peel because it has its own form of consciousness. It's a very intelligent banana peel. It knows how to interact with you. Sometimes it's your echo, sometimes it's your mentor, sometimes it's your pain in the ass trying to get you to remember something that you're ignoring or forgetting intentionally or otherwise. So it has a really important consciousness and a very important role in this particular earth life for you. So even though it's born of the earth and it dies on the earth, while you are here inhabiting it, it's a really good and useful tool. So you might as well get on board and figure out how to use it to the best of your ability. The mind is an interesting thing the mind is the only part of this equation that's half eternal and half earthbound. The part that's eternal is your consciousness, the whole body of all of your eternal experiences, everything you've done, seen, felt, experienced, thought, or created since the inception of your soul. That's your consciousness. There's the other half of the mind is the stuff you pick up from birth on. So that's fed to you by the human experience, and specifically by the people that you encounter. The more you're encountering a person, the more their stuff is going to be filling your mind. In that becomes expectations of what it means to be human. In there is stored pain, negativity, misbeliefs, confusion. So even though some of the good stuff that's stored in the human brain, such as facts and the ability to reason, be analytical, and so on, the bulk of what gets stored in the human part of the mind is not necessarily based on truth. So there's always this conflict in the mind between that which is true and that which is earth-born. And they're at odds with each other. They're always conflicting. You can see this as if you ever had a good idea pop in your head, and for a split second or 10 seconds or 2 minutes, that good idea felt doable and you felt empowered and you were excited to do it, right? Well, in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you're like, I can. I've got that wedding in June, I don't have enough money, I got the kids, and all of a sudden, that other half of your mind comes in and tells you all the reasons why it's not doable. Well, let me tell you, the half of your mind that is eternal, the conscious part of it that comes into your body, it's going to go and run with it if your mind from your human experiences and limits and boundaries or what other people told you is so. If that doesn't interfere, you're going to do it. But the part that interferes is so much bigger the more you take in and absorb other people's misbeliefs. Other people's limits will become your limits if you buy into them, okay? So it really helps you to understand the conflicts that go on in that two-segmented mind, half eternal and half earthbound. So all in all, I know I've said this in this room before, but it's good to understand it again because of where I want to go with it. All in all, we are half born of the earth, and we are half eternal, right? Split down the middle. And if you see that we're split down the middle between the half of us that is eternal and the half of us that is earthbound, you can see that the way to have peace is to be in balance. If you're out of balance, everything is out of balance. And that's why being in balance gives you peace. So what you want to discover from this is that if you want to have peace and fulfillment and happiness and joy and creativity and all of those things that we believe are possible when we take the body to begin with, then you have to have balance in the mind and the body and the spirit. If you ignore any one of those or you act too heavily in focusing on only one, then it's the equivalent of taking a ball and putting a weight in the ball. The area that's overused or neglected has a weight on it. And if I have a ball with a weight and I try to move it forward, or I try to roll it to you, what's going to happen? Nothing. It'll toggle back and forth. It's just going to go back and forth and stay static exactly on that weight. And this is one of the primary challenges that we have in being human, is that it's difficult to find out what the equation is for us as individuals to balance the mind and the body and the spirit. And the challenge is that there are a lot of opinions and there are a lot of teachers, but there's only going to be one equation that's exactly right for you. And the equation that's right for you might not be right for the person sitting next to you. So there's a big relationship between getting information, seeking guidance, learning, discovering, knowing, getting knowledge. But then when it comes to the end of the day, it's you and your intuition that will decide which of the things that it is that you see and hear are right for you. Okay? And I know I draw this as a two-dimensional drawing of a circle, but I don't know how to draw 3D that well yet. I'm working on it, but it's actually a ball. We can all see that as a ball. So we don't want to have our ball toggling back on something that's holding us back and preventing us from moving forward. We're here to move forward. We're not here to stay stuck. And one of the areas that I can talk endlessly, and I probably have, about the soul, spirit end of it and the mind part of it. I focused on this for many years in many ways at different seminars about how to make sure that the spirit is alive and it's honored and that you're doing things to quiet your mind and to stay in balance. The mind part, again, we've done lots about how to be free from negative thinking, how to use your thought energy and your feelings and your beliefs and your focus and your actions. The mind part of it, of what you're doing with your own energy and how it creates your reality. We've done a lot with that. But tonight, the cluster that I've been seeing in my client base right now is the body. So the body is what I want to talk about a little bit, and that's what Michelle didn't realize that she led into. And it's also fascinating that Stephen did leave his body today, because he's a man who the only sense that he had was the power of his brain, and his body wasn't supporting him in the physical at all. But the body, if you don't figure out the equation to honor your body, the rest is going to falter. It's going to fall apart. You may be able to it's like riding a wave as a surfer. You might really be able to ride a wave really far, but you're not going to get it to take you into shore, because eventually you're going to fall off the board. You are going to fall off the board. So it's not even about exactness. It's not about obsession, not by any means. But it's kind of figuring out what is the bare minimum necessary that keeps you alive, energetic, having mental acuity, being energized, and what is it? What's the bare minimum necessary that's exactly right for you? And doing your best within moderation to stay at least at that bare minimum necessary. And so what I do see is that one of the things I've been seeing with my clients lately is when they are stressed, the first thing that goes is their relationship with their bodies. Like, it's almost like stress becomes self-perpetuating. We feed into it by skipping a meal, or eating Doritos for dinner, or having another bottle of whiskey. We feed into it by doing things that we think are going to squash down our stress. But those things that we do in the minute as quick fixes, they are preventing us from being at our bare minimum necessary with our bodies. And then that becomes self-perpetuating. Then what you're doing with your body, maybe sleeping less, giving up exercise, because when you're stressed you don't have time, or it takes too much to tie your sneakers. But when you stop the exercising and you start to eat and drink or ingest things as quick fixes, then you start to have stress from dishonoring your body. So now you're going to eat and drink and not exercise to eliminate the stress that you have created by not honoring your body. Now you're in a cycle. So the initial stress factor that caused you to step away from those things that are honoring you, now you're in a perpetual circle, and it's much harder to get out of it than it was before you started it. And I'm very, very, very clear that it's not about obsession. It's not about being so exact. So I can't put that in my mouth. I can't touch that. I can never have this. This is off limits. This is on my no list. It's not about that. It's not about obsession. It's about moderation, finding almost like the range of what makes you feel relatively good and staying in that range within moderation, okay? Are there going to be times when you have a little too much to drink, or you have a little bit too much of some food that doesn't make you feel great? Sure. You know, don't beat yourself up about it. We're human. You got a lot of days in this body. You can have a couple that are off. You can even induce a few of those being off. But as long as those off days don't become a habit, it's perfectly fine. Your body's perfectly willing to handle a few days that are off. And actually, when you have a few days that are off, you're telling your body that you're resilient and that you're flexible and that you are able to bounce back and that you're able to live within moderate ups and downs. So it's not even a bad message to give to your body. It actually can be more damaging to give to your body the message of absolutes. I can never eat this. I can never drink this. I can never do that. I can never do this. When you start to do that, your body becomes confused and it goes into scarcity. So it shuts itself down because it knows it's never going to get anything outside of that tiny, tiny little narrow range that you gave it. And it's harder for it to draw all that it is that it needs from that little bit of exactness that you gave it. It really wants to converse with you. It's like, well, you know, I wanted mangoes yesterday, but today I really feel like bananas. But if you're like, no, bananas are not on the list. See, right here it says bananas have such and such amount of carb per ounce. You know, then your body's like, oh shit, what the hell am I going to do with another mango? I don't want another effing mango. Give me a banana. But you can't hear it because you're on the mangoes. So being too exact means that you're not honoring how your body is communicating with you. So it's trust too. That's why I said you can't listen to an expert, or you can't listen to the person next to you that says this is the only way to do it or this is the best way to do it. You can take suggestions, you can experiment, but in the end you have to feel what you feel. You're the only one that knows how you feel. You're the only one that knows how you feel. Okay, everyone understand? Okay. Now, the reason I want to emphasize this so much is, first of all, you should all understand that I never exercised a day in my life until I was about 40. So it's not about me being one of those cool kids that ran track while kicking the soccer ball and had a really good, mean forehand, because that was not me, all right? You know, if the bus stop was on a slight incline, I would have had to have someone drop me off at the bus stop, trust me. All right? So that was definitely not me. So I'm not a preacher. I'm really not. I know what it's like to be incredibly lazy and to not use my body. I really do. But what I also know is that the relationship of who I am and what I can achieve and how I feel about myself is much different when I exercise appropriately for my body. Okay? And I will tell you that I don't have to work out all that much to stay feeling pretty good. So since I don't have to work out all that much and I figured it out and I figured out what makes me feel pretty good, then I don't have to always feel guilty for not working out more. Right? So it's not as though you have to approach exercise thinking always that you're not doing enough. You know, that's why I like to start out with what's the bare minimum necessary. I do mean bare minimum, don't dip below it, but you can always go up a little bit, right? Whatever's going on, you have a vacation coming up, you want to feel a little bit more energy, so you amp it up a little bit. You can always amp it up, but don't fall below. Just don't fall below. One of the things that I found after I did start to have a more intuitive relationship with my body was that I found that I also was paralleling that with opting out of illness. So as I'm opting out of illness and I'm having a better relationship with my body intuitively, one of the things that arose was I never had a day off because I was always feeling good and I always had a lot of energy. But if you live a whole life where, like a day in sweats, you know, sitting with somebody making you tea, if you've lived your whole life where that's how you remove yourself from the stress of life, and now you've got no out, what I found I would do in the beginning of this new paradigm was I would, you know, take in an excess of something that made me feel really crummy. You know, and I always go back to Doritos. I'm gonna have to start paying Doritos, I swear, because I'm like the anti-Dorito marketer. And that just happens to be the trigger food for me. So I would eat half a bag of Doritos and then feel like hell the next day. You know, my face was twice as big, my hands couldn't fit in my own gloves or rings, and I couldn't think straight, I couldn't put together a clear sentence or a clear thought, and it was always because of the Doritos, right? But after I started to figure out this cycle, I realized what I was doing was I was giving myself permission to take a day off. Because if I was incapable of being productive, I got a day off that illness used to give me. So it's also, in addition to doing the bare minimum necessary to keep your body feeling alert and energized, you also have to give yourself permission to have time off. You have to. Schedule it in as though it's as important as taking care of your body. So that's part of it. That's part of intuiting what it is that your body needs. Okay? Now, I want to tell you a story just so I can emphasize the significance of this even more. And I know this person isn't watching, so if you don't know any of my clients, right? Okay, so and I'll change some of the details. So I had a client that was heading off to a majorly intensive master's degree program. Okay, she was in her 30s, so it wasn't like she wasn't, just fresh out of college and going off and doing this. She had worked and she was, she had an adult life all established, but now she just decided to take these 2-3 years, whatever it was, and go and do it full time. A very, very prestigious program, master's program. And she was someone that had the means to coach regularly, so I think I was doing weekly sessions with her for quite a while. And in April, before the August when she was going to leave for the program, I started to get these messages from her guides. I'm her conduit, and the messages were about exercise, foods that were appropriate for her. A lot of this stuff she already knew, quieting the mind, just what that perfect little equation was for her. And she basically knew it because she'd been doing sessions with me for a while, so she knew what her bare minimum necessary was, and she also knew what her optimal equation was. And as we're getting closer to August, by July, the guides are like, they won't talk about anything else. One point I get on the phone with her and I'm like, listen, if I were you, number one, I wouldn't pay me because I'm about to say everything that I said to you last Wednesday. So you really shouldn't pay me. But if you stay on the phone, I promise you everything that I say from your guides is going to be an exact duplication of what I said last week. So she's like, all right, well, if they want me to hear it again, I guess I'll just hear it again. So once again, we went through mind, body, spirit, exercise, okay? I was getting sick of hearing me. I didn't want to get on the damn phone anymore, all right? So the last few weeks before she went away in August, she didn't do sessions because she was prepping and moving and packing and all this. And that's perfectly understandable. And she didn't want to hear me. And I didn't want to hear me. So she's in school a couple of weeks. And she decides, I've got to get back to my sessions. So I do my first session with her. As soon as I get on the phone with her, I'm like, oh my God. I completely know why the guides were such pains in the asses from April through August. She is so stressed out within 2 weeks in this school and in this program that all of this is slipping away. It's all slipping away. So I'm on the phone and I'm like, well, what, she's like, no, I can't do it then. What about this? What about this? What about that? Can you get this in your room? Can you get a wait? Can you do this? What about, is there an organic food store? Can you get delivery? I'm like trying to figure out every solution to get her back to her bare minimum necessary. And she's like, no, I'll try. No, I'll try. No, I'll try. Now, I'll make this long story a little shorter. By November, she had a mental breakdown, a complete and thorough mental breakdown, complete and thorough, complete. And she had to withdraw from school. She was able to get permission from everybody to, put like a freeze on it and then amp it up when she was healthy again. And in this, she wasn't able to speak to me until December. When she was able to talk to me in December, and I'm fun to talk to because I have no judgment. So I'm like one person in her life she can tell anything to, how she feels about everything, and then she can feel better by the time she hangs up with me. She was able to recognize that the reason she had become hospitalized and gotten to that point was because she really just stopped the bare minimum necessary, the bare minimum of what was important for her mind, for her body, and for her spirit. And she got to see in a very few short months what the absence of those bare minimum necessaries did to her.
What was she doing? Just studying a ton?
Just studying a lot, reading a lot, meeting in her groups, doing projects, kicking off her community service activities that had to get done. It really was an intensive program, which became more stressful and more intense the less she did any of this. And what was fascinating about it was she was really fine and back up to speed by February. She went back to school in February, which is pretty remarkable that it was that quick. But she had a complete shift. She knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, from that moment on, that her life depended on the bare minimum necessary of the mind and the body and the spirit connection. And it was really interesting because I had always told her for years that somehow, some way, you're going to be able to help people increase their positive level of awareness, right? And when you're out there helping people to find another way of thinking or being or living or choices that they make, ones that are really aligned with universal truth, when you're out there doing that, there are two ways you can do it. One is because you have the knowledge but you don't live it, and the other is that you have the knowledge and you live it, right? A higher level of awareness person is only going to be able to do it when they live it. Do you follow me? And I knew to the core of my being that she was never going to be able to go out there and do it unless she lived it. Do you follow me? Mm-hmm. So she was able to see that there was fantastic benefit, lifetime benefit in this breakdown for her. Because once she went out and tried to help other people understand this equation for them, she would never be a fraud. She would totally understand the value and the importance of emphasizing that we are this equation of a mind and a body and a spirit that all need to move together forward in harmony, honoring one another and honoring each other. Make sense? Okay. And I'll tell you one other thing is that this is not the only client that this has happened to. This is just happens to be the fastest that I saw such a complete collapse and such a thorough consequence. I know that time from August through November was designed specifically for her. Most people would never experience it to this level by any means. It was appropriate for her for life, but I've seen plenty of clients that I get on the phone with them and I'm like, the first thing I get is, damn, this person's not exercising at all. And I know it. So it's like, well, you can, I'm saying to myself in my own head, you can have a pity fest with me for 60 minutes if you'd like, but why don't you hang the phone up and go for a walk? Because that's going to do you a lot more good than feeling bad for yourself because you feel so blue, right? I mean, sometimes it is that simple, right? If you ignore the bare minimum necessary, the other stuff is always going to feel worse and be worse and get worse. So that's the topic of the night.
Yay!
Any questions? Any thoughts? Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, your guide had something to say. Any thoughts out there?
It's just really sad how that really can, my sister-in-law, it's happened to her, and her life is just nothing now. Because she never, ever, ever, ever took care of herself.
Yeah.
Ever. And it was always an excuse, or, oh, I'm not doing that, or I am doing that, and now she's not very independent.
Yeah.
At a fairly young age.
Yeah.
And
And I
it's
do
so
recognize that, you know, the very, very intricate equation of each of our lives and our stories. We have such a complicated history that in any given moment, not honoring the mind, body, spirit connectedness could be a form of self-sabotage because we just don't feel worthy. We're not self-loving. You know, that's just one way we can go through life, hoping that we can find love of self by changing our relationship with our own choices. There's so many ways that life can introduce the possibility of us growing and expanding, and the absence of honoring our mind and body and spirit can be one of those impetuses for us. All right. I can tell you though, even though we've seen people become dramatically sick or die quickly, and even though we hear the whole story, oh, he was a runner, oh, he ate so clean, and oh, this, that really is never the story. Okay, that's never the story. Trust me. The universe is a very gentle consciousness. It is always wanting us to discover. It never comes out and says, first strike and you're out. Never. There's always a series of smaller opportunities to discover something. And then if the equation is that the big grand finale comes faster or sooner than you think it should have, then that might be what fits in best for the development of your soul, or if you leave your body, for the souls around you that saw you leave and saw why you left. Okay? It all makes sense. It all makes sense. There's nothing random here. This all makes sense. It all makes sense. Makes so much sense, as I wish everyone could just read from the same book as I read from all the time, because it just makes sense. Everything makes sense. It makes sense.
Which one of these books?
Akashic Records?
Yeah. It just makes sense. It all makes sense. Everything lines up. There's nothing that doesn't fit together. I like that in the arts and entertainment, there's a lot of people that are producing new songs, TV shows, the other thing, movies, books, that one too. There are people that are out there producing things that are very new and very fresh. And when you see something and it affects you, it grabs you, and you feel emotionally vested in it, what's happening is the creator has, at least at a minimum, co-created with the author what it is that you're experiencing, which means that they're getting information from beyond this earth, right? But there's nothing that clues me off or gives me a cue more that someone is not channeling when I see a piece of earth work in entertainment than a character's life that doesn't fit the story of his life, right? If it doesn't fit, the author was not co-creating the story, right? So, the kid was so happy, he had lots of brothers and sisters, and he had a puppy, and he learned to bike ride when he was 5, and then he went to Disney World, and his parents loved each other, and they rubbed each other's back, and, if all of that's true, and then all of a sudden the kid is 16, and he's, running around killing people, I'm like, please. If he's going to be running around killing people, at least tell me why. Give me the truth so we can see the cause and the effect, because it all makes sense. And some of the best movies or TV shows or books or even music that you come across is because it does make sense. The creator is channeling the process. They get that there is a cause and there is an effect. All right? But you can pull yourself out of some of the negative effects of the things that you have experienced by getting this equation working to your advantage. Okay? And one of the nice things about finding your personal bare minimum necessary without obsession is it helps you to relax because you know what you're doing. You know, it's like, oh, you know what? For me personally, I don't feel healthy if I eat buttermilk pancakes with syrup. I gave that up a really long time ago because the taste isn't worth the consequence. The consequence for me is a hangover, okay? So if I eat buttermilk pancakes with syrup, I am very clear what I am doing. So I'm not going to run around in 4 hours and yell at somebody for not putting the dishes in the sink because I'm cranky because I ate something that's inappropriate for my body, right? It's all clear. I could sit and eat the pancakes and say, just so you know, as I take this bite of pancakes, if I yell at you in 4 hours, this is on me, not on you, right? And before the effects of the pancakes kick in, I can declare this. So later on in 4 hours when I'm yelling, they'll be like, pancakes, pancakes, active choice, right? It all makes sense. So when you know what your bare minimum necessary is, then at least you know. If you're not doing it, you know. You know what you have created in your life. You know. You know. You are the one that created that. No one else did it. You know your bare minimum necessary. If you're not doing it, you are the one that didn't do it. Okay?
So can I ask a silly question? So when you hurt your body and you can't really do that, then what do you do?
Yeah. In most cases, if I have a client that hurts something, number one, we find the metaphor behind the hurt. We find the benefit behind the injury so that they can get all the value of the injury. We can let them take in the benefit or ask what it is that they need from people or the universe to help while they're healing from that. But usually we can find some other way for them to get their exercise in on some level, whether it's upper body and not lower, or right side instead of left side, but it's swimming instead of jogging. There's always ways to get it there at a bare minimum, even if that happens. There's always a way. There really is always a way, you know? Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who are on antidepressants, and I think it's changed them dramatically, but they definitely don't see it. I think it's like the mind part that's not.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not one to be absolute about anything, and I will come out and say very clearly that I think the pharmaceutical industry is not necessarily having our best interests at heart in the whole, okay?
Statement of the year.
Amen.
True.
I'm trying to say that as nicely as possible. There might be something that incentivizes them better than our good health, and that might be profits, but I'm not sure. Might be. Why not? However, if you know that someone would like you to become dependent and that they profit from it, aren't you gonna just kind of like raise a little bit of independent thinking thoughts? No matter what it is, think about it and think about, is there an earthly way that I can do this? Is there a natural approach? Is there some other remedy to this disharmony? Always at least think it through. There are some places where Western medicine is phenomenal and advanced and necessary, but not to the extent that we are using it, not to the extent that we're using it or abusing it. And so the answer is exactly why a person would go and get an antidepressant was what my client was experiencing when she was going for that program, right? She could have gone to the doctor and got an antidepressant, but would anything have in the long run been resolved if she still wasn't honoring her mind and her body and her spirit? You know, it really is kind of odd how quickly all this stuff just comes into balance when you are eating appropriately for you and exercising appropriately for you and sleeping appropriately for you. All of this stuff just lines up. It's not that difficult. It's really not that difficult. So my answer is, I I think people should at least become educated and aware and make whatever attempt to form a natural remedy for a body disharmony that they can first, or at least adjunctively. Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. Very tough.
Yeah, I think once they start on it, it is very tough.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, it is. Yeah, you know, it's kind of the history of mankind that we're always looking for the magic elixir, looking for something that is in a pill rather than participating in our own health and vitality. You know, we're always wanting that. You know, generation after generation, we're not the first ones to do it. There's just more available for us to take now. There's more ways to opt out of fitness. And you know, one thing the comedy is that how close you have to park to the gym.
Right.
Really? Okay then. You know, that kind of sums it up, doesn't it? But it's so interesting. I find it that we pay someone to clean our house so we have time to go to the gym. All right, well, just think that through. Just think that through. Think it through. Just think it through. You're paying someone to clean your house so you can go to the gym. All right, that's fine. But the premise of it, something's going on here, right? Are you really going to pay people to do everything for you so you can sit more? Or maybe just go to the gym and get your 1 hour workout out 3 times a week. Why don't you just pick up a laundry basket, or, you know, move a brick, or, you know, turn a vacuum on. None of that is going to kill you. It's really not going to kill you, instead of just sitting. You know, and if you hate cleaning, fine. Pay someone to clean your house and then go to the gym if you really love the gym instead. But it's interesting how many people don't mind cleaning, but they feel like they're above it or something, or everybody gets their house cleaned, and then they do go to the gym and they hate the gym. It's about just thinking like what is right for you. I love scrubbing down a shower because I get a whole body workout when I scrub a shower. I don't do it that often, but that's our problem, not yours. Too much personal information, right? Okay, so next.
Can I say something about antidepressants? The bottom line is that no medication, regardless of what you're taking, is the cure-all. That you're supposed to be engaged in your health and getting yourself better. So if you're on an antidepressant,
good point.
Your job is really to get off of that antidepressant eventually by talking to someone and working on it.
Yes.
So, you know, if people don't do that,
Yes,
you know, I'll take a statin, but I'm gonna eat as much fat as I want to.
Yeah.
You know, that's stupid. You know, that really is just stupid. And you really need to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's all, you know, medication is okay if you have to be.
See it as a complement, a temporary complement,
Exactly.
or even maybe a more permanent complement, as long as you know you're doing everything you can around
Absolutely.
that to support the bare minimum necessary. Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I don't think too many doctors take out a prescription pad and say, get this filled and then go sit behind your computer and come back in a week. You know, it is about this whole equation. It is about the whole equation. But, you know, in all fairness, the system itself is broken, completely broken. You know, what we're doing with healthcare and the expenses of healthcare and how litigious we are, so the expenses of malpractice, it's changed the paradigm of what it means to be a practicing doctor. It really has. I think people can begin to opt out of that again, but, you know, and then we have this other component of it that a lot of people don't feel that they got their money's worth if they don't leave with a prescription. So there's all of these other variables. It's not that simple. The only thing that is simple is your ability to think for yourself and your ability to be your own expert. That's the only thing that's simple. And that's the only thing that will stay constant, is your ability to think for yourself and to be an independent expert over your own body. That's the only thing that will remain constant.
That's a really, really hard thing to do, and my wife and I have lived through that. She
got really sick in 2016, and we went to doctor after doctor after doctor that had no idea what was wrong with her, and she was having very serious neurological and cardiological symptoms. Several emergency room visits. The best they could come up with was her general practitioner prescribed her an anti-anxiety medication and told her to see a therapist. My wife had the strength in her to say that is not the answer.
Okay.
And thank God she did, because she found a book that explained how to feed her body to cure it, and she ended up with a Lyme disease diagnosis.
Okay.
That, one, the doctors don't even know what it is. They think it's a bacteria from a tick. It's not. It's a viral overload.
Yeah, yes. That's, and
two-
you're actually kind of illustrating what it is that I'm saying, is that in the end, she was her own,
She was her own
expert,
advocate.
even with
And-
having no knowledge whatsoever, but saying this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel right.
Right.
And you keep
and,
pursuing
and the
it.
problem, the core problem is really what you said earlier, is misinformation.
Mhm.
We are all very poorly educated in how to
How to care for our
this
bodies.
meat suit.
Mhm.
And,
Yes.
and it's because of the corruption in pharma, big farming industry, agriculture industry, the lobbyists and all that, and it's coming to light because
It
the
is,
truth is
it
out,
is,
and
it
it's
is.
coming out, and
It
I'll
is.
share a book with you all if you want to know. I don't want to step on any of yours, but it's completely unrelated. Medical medium is who actually saved her life.
Okay,
And she read this book, and she instilled his protocol, and in 30 days she started coming out of it.
okay, yeah, I
and the
totally,
doctors actually
I totally,
told her-
totally believe that.
The
Good.
doctor told her
Good
she
sticking
could
with it.
not eat meat. This is what
It's so,
educated
it's
doctor
interesting
told her.
that you say
Yeah.
that, because I probably have shared this story, and I'll make it very, very brief, but a good example of this, and this is only one example. I was doing a session with someone, I'd never met her, she was in Florida, and at the end of the session, a lot of times people like feel like they might not have asked the right question, right? So at the end of the session, a lot of people say, is there anything else my guides would like me to know? And I'm like, well, in the next 15 seconds, leave your job, leave your husband, leave your state, leave your mother. But no, you're all good. Now, I didn't ask that question earlier in the session, but let's get to it now. No, but so she asked that question at the end, and so when someone asks me a question like that, then the answer comes in, and I'm like, oh yeah, as a matter of fact, the answer is that your husband could use more carbohydrates. And as it's coming out of my mouth, I don't even know if she's married. So that's how you know I'm intuiting it. She's like, oh. She's like, oh, I feel really, really guilty because I never brought my husband up in this entire session. And let me tell you what's going on. We were doing a session in March, and she said in, God, I'm so out of my body. I
January,
can't. What's that
February,
month that comes after
December?
August? September.
Wow. They gave up carbs.
So in September, I saw it in my head. I knew where it was. There it was.
Time is different in the astral.
It is. There it is. How you label it is right there. Okay, so in September, she decided for weight loss or whatever, she wanted to go carb free, and she didn't want to cook differently for everybody in the family, so everybody went carb free in her family. And by December, her husband was actually starting to get sick, so he started to go to doctors. By January, he was much sicker. Now he'd been to every doctor and every specialist. No one was diagnosing him. So I get on the I get on the phone with her in March. And she said he was 38 years old. In the last 3 weeks, she said, they think he has an autoimmune disease because in the last 3 weeks, he's finally started missing work. That's how severe his illness is. He misses like 2 or 3 days of work a week. And so she's like, can you understand my guilt in not bringing him up? And I'm like, yeah, kind of think that might be a pressing matter, but it's okay. No judgment. No judgment. No. So she said, you mean in all these doctors we've been to since September, not one of them said, have you had a change in diet?
Right.
And
You
she's
don't
like,
think
no, not one of them said, have you had a change in diet? Not one of them suggested that he might
And they
need
went
some
to medical, and
carbs.
they went to medical.
Yeah, but they
school.
don't learn
They
that
don't
in
study
medical
nutrition.
school.
No. So it just turned out that whatever was the optimal mind, body, spirit connectedness for him, carbs were good for him. And that was all that was wrong with him. He was starving to death because his body needed the nutrients that came in carbohydrates. Wild stuff,
I just saw,
right?
there's, if you ever watch TV, they have these emergency room, it's really crazy shows, but there was a girl who was a vegan.
Ah,
And she went into the hospital and she was really, really sick, really sick. And they couldn't figure it out. And the doctors couldn't figure it out, but then her sister came in and started telling how she was a vegan. She was a vegan, all she ate was vegan. And they said, oh, and they figured out when you eat a lot of vegan, you don't have enough B12.
yes, I've heard that before too.
And
B12,
that's
they
how
put
they
a
were
lot.
able to solve
Yeah.
that medical mystery. She was, you
Yeah.
know, she was taking care of herself, but not in the right way because she
Yes.
needed the
Yes.
B12.
Yes.
So that was
Yeah,
right
that's
on
why
the money.
in the end, you are your own best expert. You might not have the answer, but at least you'll be able to intuit if the answer that was given to you is not right. You know, that's a good form of intuition as well. So listen to that, just listen to that. I think we are more spiritually aware and more confident in our journeys with ourselves, that we don't deem other people the expert just because they have some particular degree. And the people I have coached who have been in medical school, I have to tell you, because I get a lot of feedback now of the medical school curriculum, it is not spiritual. Let's just be clear. It is not spiritual. As a matter of fact, it is so archaic as to be insane. And any person I have coached through medical school right now, it gets to the point where I just have to say to them, listen, memorize, and regurgitate. Do not absorb it. Listen, memorize, and regurgitate. Do not absorb it, because they know ultimately, in order to be a vehicle of change for good in the medical community, they have to get the degree, they have to get the license. Therefore, they have to accept what is told to them. And there's very few people in that circumstance that are listening independently to what is taught them in medical school. It's nutty. It's really nutty. I had one client, she was ready to drop out. All she wanted to do was she wanted to be a psychiatrist. She could not handle what they were force feeding her in medical school. Couldn't handle it. Every time she tried to add a bit of insight or a study or some scientific evidence, they affected her in any subjective grading they could have had. So she just had to learn to shut up. You know, so don't think that training is based on the mind and the body and the spirit, because it clearly is not yet. There may be medical schools out there that are exemptions, but I haven't coached anyone that's going through those medical schools. I hope there are, but not that I've come across yet. So you are your own best expert, and you always will be. So let's take a break and grab a cup of coffee. Welcome back, everybody. Good to see you. How y'all doing? Okay, so I want to say something.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Don't let us hold you back.
All yours.
Thank you. Okay, good. Glad to hear it. I just want to remind you, especially for those of you who weren't at the year before us in January, that as we are approaching 2020, the time to prepare for enlightenment is over. It's now time to be enlightened for yourself and others, okay? So prep time's done. We had a nice big period of time to prep for it. Now it's time to be it. So be it. Because in these 2 years, 2018 to 2020, we need as many people there as possible to help the newcomers. Newcomers are going to be coming in fast and furiously. So we need people to help them get into that whole thing and figuring it all out, you know, the upsides, the downsides, the mysteries, why people are leaving me because I'm happy, you know, all that kind of stuff. So you got to just be there now. And also, a lot of you have known me for a lot of years, and I definitely, I mean, I tell you where to come and find me, and I tell you what I make available, but I generally don't self-promote very much. But I do want to say, and I don't have a problem saying this tonight, I believe that I am one of the clearest channels to enlightenment that's on this earth right now. I have no problem saying that, okay? Because I see it reinforced and validated through the successes of clients and audiences, and I see what's not working by a lot of other information and misinformation that's out there. And I only want to be a conduit. I'm not a fix-it person. I'm not a know-it-all, nothing. I am a conduit. I know how to tap into that river of universal knowledge. So, you know what? If we want to really help, please bring people. I come here every month. This is my way of making this information available to people. Please bring people, because it's important that we all have the opportunity to advance together and leave no one behind. It's not that difficult to do, so we might as well just let as many people have access to this information as possible. I recognize that for a lot, it's very difficult to convey what it is that I do. So good luck with that. If anybody ever comes up with the magic words, please share it with all of us, because I'm still 10 years later looking for that magic sentence or a paragraph to tell other people what it is that I do. So that's my self-promotion of the decade, okay? Now, what we're going to do with these words is, me as a conduit, I have developed my intuition very, very profoundly. So my consciousness has no limit. I can go to history, I can go to your past lives, I can go into your dreams, I can go into your sister's quest, I can go into anything, anywhere. There are no limits where I can go. So what I want to do is this, we'll make a little bit of a game of this. I don't have any agenda in telling anybody anything except to bring forth relevant information and timely information to help people be fulfilled, to be happy, to be harmonious. As silly and 6-year-oldish as it sounds, I really, 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 really want everyone to be happy. I mean, that is so much at the core of my being. I just want you to be happy. I really do. I just want you to be happy, okay? Sometimes it means getting yourself out of the way to do it. So in playing, since I have no agenda with any of these words, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the word out loud, and I'm just going to give you a silent minute to see what pops into your head about that word. Because I'm just going to listen to your guides, and I'm going to say what they ask me to say. It doesn't mean that we're going to be matching. You might be adding to some of the things that I say. You might be going in an entirely different direction. So don't think you're wrong if your answer doesn't match mine, but just see what does happen when you put forth the intention to see how you get thoughts or information when you're intending to. Okay, that's all this is about. I had a client a long time ago bought me a ticket, front row seat in a tiny setting to see John Edward, right? Is that his name?
Edwards.
So, yeah. So when I went there, I was new at this, so I didn't know what it meant to be a psychic, and I wanted to see what it meant because he was going to tell me, right? Because I'm now psychic, so I wanted to figure out what it really means. And so I put on an invisibility cloak so that he wouldn't call on me and he wouldn't see me, so I could see if what I got matched what he got. And I got nothing. I got nothing he got. So at come around the first half, I'm feeling a little like, what the hell am I doing? I have to find a new profession. This is definitely not working out. This guy's clearly got it going on, and I got nothing. And then I came back after the break, and he starts out this next half by saying that he has this the student that he brought on the stage, and they work together a lot. And he said that when we worked together and I shared the stage with her, we expected that we would always get the same thing. And we never get the same thing. It's like she'll go there and she'll be all right about that one, and I'll go there and I'll be all right about that one, but we never go to the same person, and we never get the same story, and we never get the same guides. And my point in telling you this is that whatever you tap into or whatever you feel suggest in your head, if it overlaps with mine, great, because then that gives you more confidence or more validation. But if it doesn't overlap with mine, that doesn't mean that yours is wrong. Got it?
Got it.
Okay, cool. So what's the first word? Oh God, you guys are not intuitive at all. First word is family. Give you 1 minute. Okay. Are you done?
Yeah,
That's fine.
started getting early.
Cool. All right. Now, what I do want to suggest now, because this is what I heard when you were listening to your own guides, is that I'm going to come in maybe even from an angle that you might not come in. So really don't use what I say as the measure of what you expect you should have gotten. Okay, I'm going to come in somewhere differently. I probably will come in somewhere differently. Okay, so feel comfortable with whatever it is that you got about that word, and I'm going to come in where your guides collectively are bringing me in. Okay, one of the things that I think most of us can agree upon when we have a relatively high level of awareness, we can understand that family may be a biological connection, it may not be a biological connection, but our family of origin is optional, okay? Even though throughout history, religion, government and religion being the same, has mandated that family not be optional, that no matter what family you're born into, they are your responsibility until death. That's actually not true, and we've evolved enough to know that that's not true. Family is choice and family is love. And if you happen to be biologically connected to those whom you call family, that's pretty much a bonus, but there's no guarantee in it, and there's really no pressure in it. Anyone that tells you that you're responsible for another person because you're sharing biology, it's because they don't want the responsibility of figuring out how to get that person taken care of. The most important choice in everything that it is that you do is you. When you are happy and you are satisfied and you are whole and you are complete and you are optimistic and you are healthy, then you have an overflow of abundance that you can share with others. And oftentimes, whom you want to share with is family, is people that you're biologically connected to or a family unit connected to by birth or marriage or adoption or anything else. But if you have members of your family that are difficult or challenging consistently, and when you build yourself up, they tear you down, when you go free, they imprison you, that is a choice if you want to stay within that energy and to continue to interconnect with them. Okay? Understand that you have the freedom of choice. I had a client say the other day, people weren't showing up for a party that she was giving. Nobody was RSVPing, and she was really hurt. So she decided to send out an email that said, oh, and then somebody said, we want it to be only family. And so she decided to send out an email that said, my friends are my family, right? And I realized how empowering that was for her to say. But when you're thinking in terms of my family is my friends or my friends are my family, it's a good step. But you also have to remember to honor just the simple word family of what your family probably thinks it is. So even if you are saying something to the effect that my friends are my family, make it all encompassing so that they know that they're welcome as long as they're contributing things that are good into the equation of what this family is. Okay? That's my answer. Anybody get anything kind of similar to this?
Almost exact.
Wow.
Almost
Yeah.
exact.
Cool. Awesome.
Crazy.
Awesome. I don't really think there's a person with a life circumstance on this planet that I haven't coached them or haven't had in my audience by now. It's actually mind-blowing how much I get to see and hear and feel. And I can tell you that when it comes to coaching, not just having someone in my audience, the people that are the most difficult to integrate, change, and shift are those that are saturated in families that say family is more important than anything. As soon as a family starts to declare that family is more important than anything, it means they've given up on being interesting and caring and loving enough to want you to come around. So they're mandating that you come around out of guilt. So that sentence is a red flag. Family is more important than anything. I've never once had to say that to my children, and I never will until I die. Because if my kids want to be near me or with me, then they will be. And if I haven't earned that opportunity for them to be near me or with me, then that's on me. Or their soul's intent or their soul's quest or how they're going to play out this whole growth thing in this body, maybe I'm not included in it to the level that I might want to be. And I have faith that that's going to be the right journey for them. Okay? Family is not everything. It's really not. Family is choice by love. Choice by love. Okay. Good? All right, next word. Wouldn't it be funny if I pull out family again? Did I also mention? All right, you ready? You guys got your guides all tuned up? They're all ready to talk to you again? Yeah? Connecting. Connecting. Ooh. Okay. You guys feel like, did the process work a little bit more easily for you this time?
Yeah.
With connecting after you saw how this might go? Yeah? Good? No? Still?
It
No?
was easier with family.
Okay. All right. Connecting. Again, I'm going to go where your collective guides bring me. And so there's only a piece of you in what I might say. So you might have gotten an entirely different approach or thought or line of discovery here. So connecting. Connecting is it's a fascinating topic today because we are in a period where our traditional methods of connecting are going to dissolve, and our new upcoming ways of connecting are coming into the forefront and more prevalent, okay? So the choice is, when we're in a major shift like this, we have to choose what are the ways that we want to connect and what are the ways that connecting helps us to feel meaning in our lives, okay? One of the observations that we can make, and maybe you'll agree with me, but the lack of our right to touch right now, it's causing us to become isolated. And it is important that we have the human touch, whether it's a touch on the arm, or it's a hug, or a kiss on the cheek, or holding each other's hands, or putting your arm around someone. But in us being as litigious as we are, that you're not allowed to touch people, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. A lot of people have become very, very conscious of the way that it is they interact with one another physically. And that has been exacerbated now by the Me Too. There's a lot of great stuff that are coming as a result of Me Too. But the feeling that we're not allowed to connect with each other in a physical way, that's not one of the good advances that are going to come from it. I have an exemption to virtually everything for a couple of reasons. Number one, I vibrate high, so nothing bad ever happens to me, so I get away with stuff most people don't get away with. I can hug any one of you and no one is gonna sue me. So I'm free. I'm allowed to do stuff I want to do, and some of you aren't allowed to do the stuff that you want to. But you can use your intuition and kind of push the envelope a little bit. If you're an elementary school teacher, you're allowed to touch somebody's arm when you're putting a Band-Aid on them. You're allowed to touch them on the shoulder. You're allowed. Don't be fear-based. Be protected by the love that it is that you generate, and that will be the protection of anything negative coming into you as a consequence. The other thing is that with social media and online dating and apps like that, there's some confusion about what connecting means. You know, it's not necessarily connecting in a way that's going to build our soulful development simply because our numbers are higher, the numbers of friends, the number of interactions, the number of likes, the numbers of anything. If we're not able to communicate one-on-one and have the senses that are important in connecting in levels of intimacy that might not necessarily happen through social media or through texting, and one of the most important aspects of life that allows us to develop in our bodies is going to be taken away from us, and there will be a consequence, because the human touch is essential. It's absolutely essential to good health and to having the mind, body, spirit connectedness be in a ball that rolls forward. Okay? I'll tell you a very, very brief story, very quickly. I knew a person who had very, very bad postpartum, and in the first year of her son's birth, she really barely touched her son. And some people would, she learned how to prop up bottles really quickly. People would come in to change the baby's diaper. What I was able to witness, I didn't have any influence whatsoever, but what I was able to influence is that I was able to see a child that I'm going to intuit was born healthy. After the first year of life, he was no longer healthy. He no longer had the mental capability or mental development of what a 12-month-old baby should have had. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt from intuition, I don't care what science says, that it was a really unfortunate consequence of him not being touched. It's essential that we are touched. It's essential that we connect. It's essential that we are loved and that we are in each other's presence physically. When I was on a missing person business trip when I first started this whole journey, I was only using a written word to communicate with guides. I didn't know how to hear them yet, or see them, or feel them, or sense them. So I would only work with, I could get the words, but I couldn't get anything more than that. And a very funny thing happened on one particular trip. At the end of the day, I was depleted, emotionally, spiritually, physically, nutritionally, sleepily. I was out. I had nothing left in the tank. And the guides said to me, go home. And there were some things that were going on that made me feel afraid of what I was doing. I was afraid I was going to, rub some people the wrong way, because it seemed like it was a murder case. And so I read, go home, and I panicked. I thought I was in peril. I thought I was in jeopardy. I made all of those things that weren't working well in my body because I was so depleted. It made it all shut down because I was so afraid of those words, go home, okay? Once I pulled myself together and got some water, got some protein, got a shower. Once I got all that going on and I could talk to my guides and say, I'm booking the next plane out of there, I was like, well, you said go home. And they were like, no. I'm just like, just go rest. Just get out of where you are. Just go take a break. But the words "go home," I took it with an exclamation point and in highlighted red letters and with panic. Well, come on, that's 2 words. What are you guys doing with texts? Are you really connecting? Are you really connecting? No, don't have intimate conversations through text. Just don't do it. And try to encourage other people not to. You know, pick up the phone or go to Starbucks or go to the beach and connect, because you cannot possibly figure out what's in the heart of somebody if you're not looking in their eyes. Look in each other's eyes and find out what's really going on. We all have walls, we all have protections, we all have misinformation that we're trying to deal with, we all have needs, we all have wants, we all have all of this. So people will isolate themselves more and more and more the less they feel that they have been heard or understood. If you want to be one who hears and understands, then touch people, look in their eyes, you know, be connected, really, really, really be connected. Okay? Good? Anyone get anything similar to that?
I got the story.
And that's the people portion of it. Everything I do is about being connected. And I don't even think I have to tell you that every single thing I do is about being connected. If you disconnect from your eternal nature, your infinite wisdom, who you are as a soul, forget about it. You'll be miserable. You disconnect from this source, you're going to be miserable. So find your way to get that open to some level or another, and you will feel more at peace, more prepared, and more intuitive. Okay, connecting. Good, everybody? Everyone got that exactly as I said it, verbatim? Right? Yeah? You good?
Sure.
All right, one more, guys?
Yeah.
You having fun? Yeah? Okay, one more. Compassion. Okay, how are we doing? Compassionate people? Okay, compassion, I know that there's going to be some people in this room that know kind of exactly what I'm going to say, but I'll say it anyway. In the development of the soul in human form, there is a hierarchy of vibrations. Hate and fear are the absence of the vibration of love, and love is the vibration of love. Our soul is always wanting to increase our vibrational energy by adding more love into our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions, and our feelings. And on this hierarchy of increasing our relationship with the vibration of love, one of those nice places to be that feels really, really good is compassion. And so compassion for many, many, many people is a lot better than where they live. It's better than indifference, it's better than judgment, it's better than prejudice, it's better than, oh, my all-time favorite, just gotta love this one. If I see that word one more time, I know well-meaning people use it, but that's bullshit. That is such bullshit. The word tolerance implies you think you're superior, but you're going to put up with somebody else. That's not acceptable. That's way below the line. But anyway, I digress. Tolerance. Then as you move up the vibrational scale, there's something called compassion. Compassion is that feeling that other people matter, that you feel some level of sympathy or empathy for their experiences, that you can leave yourself or your selected identity or your egoic needs behind so that you can feel something of value, and you might even be able to make a contribution of value to someone else that may be struggling, okay? So for a lot of people who are living down here at tolerance, compassion is a really, really, really great place to be, right? It's a huge improvement on the vibrational scale of love. It's a goal, and it's a goal that would be a worthy one to achieve, okay? But compassion is also not love. It's less than the vibration of love. So you haven't finished. You think you nailed the compassion? You still got to keep going because you're still not there. Because compassion by nature is implying judgment. Because if you feel compassion for someone, you are perceiving that something you know or some circumstance that the other person doesn't have is superior. So if you feel some compassion for someone that's diagnosed with cancer, then you think you being cancer-free is a superior life experience or life journey. Do you follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So as soon as there's judgment or a little slant of pity in there, pity is not coming from the vibration of love. So therefore, compassion is not yet love. It's really, 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 really good. And if I could leave this planet one day in 100 years and everybody's feeling compassion, I'm going to be very, very satisfied and I'll be ready to go home. But if you do get there, don't stop, because there's a long way to go. And the next step after that is to be able to comprehend the reasoning behind people's journeys, where they are, where they're stuck, the complexities of how they got there, and understand that every circumstance that a person is living in and by and with is exactly the consequence of their specific journey in that moment. When you understand all of the pieces that went into it, you understand where they are with comprehension. You also have an innate knowledge then of the benefits if they are not aligned with harmony. You understand the benefits of where they are in this moment. So it's not about judgment, it's about comprehension. Comprehending where they are and why, and what value where they are and why has for them in the development of their soul. Okay? Good. Did everybody get that? Yeah, exactly. Yay! It's the first time you move above the vibration of compassion and your vibrational energy is closer to love than compassion is. The first time you're there, you're going to feel really mean because you're going to think there's something wrong with you because you're not feeling the sorrow or pain or fear that someone else is feeling. Well, we're told that we have to feel these things for other people because that makes us good.
That's why I don't go to funerals anymore.
Yeah, so if you are not feeling that, it doesn't mean that you've dropped off the loving vibration. It means that you might be a little bit higher than compassion, and you recognize that in this journey, if I stay in that vibration of love, I can give someone else a place to come to. I can invite people. But if I come down there with you, we're just going to all be miserable together in that self-perpetuating vibration. So try to stay where you are if you're above the experience that somebody else is having. I guarantee you are not a better person if you feel sad when someone else is down and out. You simply are not a better person. It's not a measure of your worth to feel sad or fearful or depressed or scared or any of that when someone else is having that kind of an experience. And it doesn't make you not compassionate if you do feel that comprehension is where you are at. You can still contribute, you can still be of value, but it doesn't mean that you have to sit and cry with them or feel their fear, okay? Give them a place to go. Don't give them a place to stay. Give them a place to go, okay?
I just wanted to share something, you know, it's about intuition and living your life. I was going to a lot of Ranger games in Penn Station over the winter, and I saw somebody without, you know, shoes on, you know, and I saw him, he didn't have shoes, and I said, you know what, I have to do something. So I started something called Boots on the Streets. And,
Oh, cool.
yeah, and people donate boots to me, and every Sunday morning, I don't go every Sunday, during the bad weather, every Sunday, I go into Penn Station, and I find someone who's homeless, and I give them the boots.
Wow.
But the tagline is, the way to somebody's heart is through their feet.
Oh, I love
And
that.
it is an incredible experience. It's not going just to give the boots.
Yeah.
You know, I counsel them, I ask them why they're on the street, what happened, and, you know, there's a lot of stories out there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
they come to me, so, I mean, I go there with 5 pairs of boots, they're gone in 10 minutes.
Wow.
You know, and then the other flip side of it is, I make them swear that they're not gonna sell the boots.
Ah, just sign this contract.
Just so they know, I know. And if they go sell the boots, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because they may need to eat,
But at
so,
least
you
they're
know.
making an earnest.
Exactly,
commitment
right,
to
exactly.
try
You're not
not to
stealing the
sell
boots
them.
from somebody.
Yeah.
But that's intuition for me, and it's,
Wow.
so that really, you know, you brought it home for me, so
Wow,
it's really
cool.
very intense.
Cool, I like
Thank you.
that. That's really nice.
Did I see that online?
You might have, yeah, I do
feel like
post
I
it on
did.
Facebook. Yeah, I, you know, people do, donate boots, so it's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Can I give your first and last name so that, or you give your first and last name if people want to donate?
Sure, it's Patrick Rogers, and I have a drop-off spot, 25 Merrick Avenue in Merrick, and there's Ben's Contracting in Freeport, and you can drop off boots there as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good, good. And I know Patrick well enough to know that he doesn't need to build up his feeling of self-love by making this commitment to people. He loves himself, and he makes a contribution from the overflow of self-love, which is nicer than sacrifice, right? All right, cool. We're probably near our time. We are near our time. Goes fast, right? And I just got warmed up. 6 hours later. One day I'm going to talk until I don't feel like talking anymore and see how many people are still. Make it like a marathon. See how long she can go. Every now and then throw some sunflower seeds at me and some water. We'll see how long I
If
can
you put
go.
snacks out, you might get.
I'll go a little farther.
Just not the Doritos.
Yeah, the Doritos
Yeah.
or the buttermilk pancakes.
Yeah. People will fall asleep. Thank you.
All right, so I would love to see you on Monday in Holbrook, and that would be fun. And I'll definitely see you and your friends and your loved ones, and maybe even your family here again on
411.
4/11 on April 11th. Okay? Yeah, I'll see you April 11th. Okay, with your friends and your family and all of them.